our career development career development packages. It's something that we launched at the conference, at the AMCTO conference this year in June, and it's a program that, again, as I mentioned before, we're really excited about. We think we hope that that our membership and those within the sector are excited about it. And so as far as format today, I'm going to open up a presentation in a minute. It's a presentation almost identical to the one that we gave at the conference this year. I'll just sort of run through that presentation. If you have any questions sort of while the presentation is going on, you're welcome to put them in the chat. Yin is going to sort of manage or monitor the chat on our end and answer any questions that you might have. And then we're also going to, we'll hopefully have some time at the end that people can, turn on their mics and ask any questions directly to the group as well. So with no further ado, allow me to share my presentation here. It's great to see so many familiar faces on here as well today, or at least names anyway. So as I mentioned before, we're going to talk a bit about our career development packages, and this is our information session. We are recording this session, and we will make that available. So give me a sec. Advancing. There we go. So as far as today's agenda, we're going to talk a little bit about the challenges in staff retention, many of which many of you would already be aware. We're going to talk a bit about talent development and skill sets, the career development packages themselves and the benefits of those. Some really important considerations if you or your staff are thinking about applying for the packages. We talk a little bit about the application and registration process, next steps, and as well as open up the floor to any questions we might have. So one of the stories that I shared during the conference session was my background. Before I joined AMCTO about 3+ years ago, I was within the municipal sector. I spent almost 3 years at the town of Caledon, and before that about 9 years with the Region of Peel. I remember when I joined the Region of Peel, coming from a more of a political position before that, I came to the region and I had made sort of a commitment to myself that I was going to be the CAO of the Region of Peel within 5 years. As laughable as that sort of sounds now, I probably had an overwhelming belief in my own abilities at that point in time, maybe overinflated. But as I sort of went through that journey, as my first sort of step into the municipal sector, I started to think a little bit about career path. Like, what is the career path that is going to get me to that next place or to that next rung in, if you want to call it a ladder, or at least your sort of career goals? What's ultimately going to assist me in getting that, and what is that career path? And the reality is there are sort of different career paths or different opportunities that may be available, but there are some sort of core skill sets or core knowledge pieces that are sort of necessary for people to sort of move through their career and ultimately support them. But when we talk about sort of challenges, we talk about, in staff retention, we know that it's a significant issue within the municipal sector about retaining talent, but also growing your talent from within. So we know that there's a huge competition for talent, a lot of factors that go into that, such as compensation, benefits, flexible work, organizational work culture also plays a significant piece. We know that municipalities are now probably famous or infamous for poaching. They're looking to attract experienced, trained staff rather than potentially developing them from within. We know that workload and burnout is a significant issue, where as municipal staff, you're being asked to do more with less, especially when there's downloaded services, things like homelessness, things like climate change, where municipal staff are being asked to do more without necessarily more resources at their disposal. We know that retention is an issue because of declining council staff relationships. We know that there's been increased demand and hostility, not only between councils and staff, but also the public and staff. And this is really affecting the overall culture and satisfaction. And then something that we've seen on the horizon for probably a decade or two now is staff retirements. So the overall sort of demographic of the sector is creating knowledge and experience gaps. So these are some of the things that are presenting a challenge to staff retention. When we talk about talent development and skill set development, we know that organizational succession planning often is not fully addressed. Things like looking at talent management, looking at a skills inventory. What skill sets does your employee group have? And the development and strategic recruitment. We know there's sort of a lack of organizational capacity, especially in smaller and even medium-sized municipalities. There may be a lack of expertise or even a lack of prioritization to succession planning within your organization. And there's also, as I mentioned before, there's no defined path for succession for most municipal professionals. How do you get from A to B? Especially for those looking for roles in management and organizational leadership. How do you get to that management position, or how do you get to that leadership position within your organization? But one of the things we've talked about, despite the different subject matter expertise, are there some common elements that will help prepare staff for that next career? So again, while you may not, you may not have that specific skill set, you may have a generalized set of skills or experience that are ultimately going to support you in taking that next step forward. So as we were, when I joined AMCTO again about 3.5 years ago, I started to think a little bit more of our overall sort of service offerings, and started to really talk to some CAOs, talk to a number of people within the HR field, and talk a bit about what are some of those sort of specific skill sets. And these are some of the things that we heard. We talked a little bit about municipal specific education. So do you or they understand municipal government, things like finance, operations, law, policy development, strategic planning? Do they understand some of those important sort of broader concepts within the municipal sector? Because we know the further you sort of go up the ladder in any municipality, usually the broader your responsibilities, and you usually have to have a broader skill set knowledge outside of your specific level of expertise. So again, these are important things that people need to understand in order to move forward in their careers. Municipal specific experience. So do they have experience working in or managing within a municipal government environment? Things like people management, budgeting, council relationships. Have they demonstrated that specific municipal specific experience? And then you look at things like, which is sort of sometimes the sort of great unknown, which are things like power skills or sometimes referred to as soft skill development. Do they understand their environment, and do they know how to navigate that environment? So things like communications with council and staff, and with colleagues, and with people, direct reports, or even supervisors. Do they have that ability to communicate with those individuals? Do they have political acuity? Do they have problem solving skills? Do they have emotional intelligence? Like those types of again, power skills that people need in order to and demonstrate in order to take that next step in their careers. So, as I mentioned, when I started with AMCTO, I started to look at our programs in sort of a comprehensive manner. And it really did occur to me that AMCTO as an organization has all of the individual components that I spoke to earlier. We have the municipal specific education. We have the experiential piece, and as well as we have a lot of programs that deal with those power skill sets. So we wanted to take a look at those things as a potential career development package. We have a lot of individuals that may be taking those individual components. They may be taking education. They may be, going to a forum, or they may be going to the conference, or they may be going to different opportunities. But we wanted to look at that as a comprehensive package that might assist in developing individuals in their careers. So that's essentially what the career development packages are. The CDPs, they're curated groups of AMCTO programs and services aimed at addressing individual skill gaps and preparing municipal professionals for career growth. So again, within each of the packages, which we'll get into in a minute, they have education, there's professional development, there's accreditation, as well as membership, and also mentorship as well. One of the key things here, which again we'll talk about a little bit later, is one of the motivators in this as well is also offering that at a significant discount to our membership. So if ultimately you're taking all of those components, we want to offer that at a significant discount of 25% off of the market rate, so that ultimately you're able to stretch your training dollars at the municipality a little bit further. So there are 3 streams to the CDPs that are going to be available: early career, legislative, and leadership. And I'll go into each of those right now. So the early career stream is probably the most intensive of all 3 streams. It is a 4-year program. And ultimately, from an education perspective, you will, if you are in that program and you successfully complete it, you'll finish with your diploma in municipal administration. So that includes the 4 programs: the municipal administration program, the municipal accounting and finance program, municipal law program, and the human resources program. You'll also receive each year of that program, each of the 4 years, you'll receive a registration for one of our AMCTO forums. We'll also lead you through the accreditation process for the accredited municipal professional, or AMP. You'll receive your full AMCTO membership for that year, and then you'll also be registered to participate in our mentorship program. So this is our mentorship program, which has been growing quite a bit over the last couple of years. Will match individuals within that early stream with a mentor for a minimum of 1 year in that program. You have the ability, actually, at any point in time to participate in that mentorship program as an AMCTO member, provided you're an AMCTO member, but you'll be required to participate for just 1 year of the program. So we've also created a legislative stream. We certainly recognize the fact that we are still a very popular organization for those within the legislative space. So we wanted to ensure that we created something specifically for our folks in that group. So this is a 3-year program. So it would include the Municipal Clerks Institute Level 1 and 2, Municipal Law program, as well as our Parliamentary Meeting Protocol course. Similar to the early career piece, you will receive 1 AMCTO forum. You'll also be registered and to go through the Accredited Ontario Municipal Clerk program, accreditation, as well as full membership, as well as the mentorship program for 1 year, either as a mentor or a mentee, depending on where you are with your sort of career at the moment. And then the third one is our leadership and our leadership stream. So again, as an organization, we know from our membership that many of you, or many of our members, see AMCTO as a management and leadership organization. So we wanted to ensure that we included a stream for those that are looking towards that leadership stream, or in that leadership stream. This is a shorter program; it's 2 years. From an education perspective, you would leave that if you are successful with the executive diploma in municipal management, and then you'll also be registered in the AMCTO Ivy Canadian Municipal Leadership Accelerator. Again, similarly, you would be for professional development, you would have access to one leadership form each year. You would go through the process for your accreditation for the CMO or Certified Municipal Officer. And again, similarly, you would receive your membership as well as 1 year within the mentorship program as a mentor. So why should you or your staff consider applying for the CDP? So if we look at things like the early career package, it really is targeted towards sort of new professionals not currently enrolled in AMCTO's education program. And we'll talk a little bit about some of the conditions related to the individual components of the application or the program. And we really do think this is perfect for those sort of newer staff and sort of the 2 to 3 years looking at that sort of more focused growth path. Again, for the legislative stream, we're looking for legislative staff, clerks, deputy clerks, coordinators who are really sort of prepared to demonstrate that overall knowledge within that sort of body of work. And then with the leadership stream, we're looking for those current and aspiring municipal leaders seeking that exposure to municipal specific management and leadership content. And we know that our CMO accreditation is very well respected within the sector, really allowing you that opportunity to demonstrate your leadership, you or your staff's leadership skill sets. So really, we're asking you if I know there's a lot of people on this call that have probably taken their MAP or they've done some other AMCTO education programs. If it's not good for you, then maybe it's something that you could, connect one of your staff or one of your future staff with if they qualify. So when we talk sort of about the overall benefits, we see it very much as a defined path for what we'll call a complete municipal professional. It provides all of those components that we talked about earlier, municipal specific education, experience, as well as that personal and professional development. We see it as very much an increased connection between the municipality and the individual. Again, you may have staff that you aren't currently developing now. They may be taking a course here and there, but ultimately, what is that sort of defined path for them? So ultimately, if there's an ability for you to recognize those individuals within your organization and have a clear development path for them, it really shows a commitment between the employer and the employee. And ultimately, sometimes that's what staff are looking for. They're looking for that commitment. And we think this is an excellent opportunity to do that. We don't want to, certainly we want to, on the flip side, of that commitment, we also understand that this is ultimately something that can also make someone's individual marketability, an increase in their individual marketability. So again, we see it very much as us sort of strengthening the overall municipal staff pool. Our goal is to create that succession planning within that organization, certainly. But again, there is that sort of individual marketability that we can't really deny. And then really, we're talking about a significant overall savings to municipalities. When you take all of those programs and that I mentioned earlier within each of the individual packages, that represents thousands of dollars over the time of those programs. So again, when you bundle and discount those offerings, your municipality is potentially saving thousands of dollars on those individual components, which we think is important, because we know many times you have to do what you can to make those dollars stretch, and we think this is a great opportunity to benefit our municipal partners there. So just a few sort of really important considerations that we think you should be aware of. We are only offering 10 packages per career development package stream. So 10 in early career, 10 in legislative, and 10 in leadership. It's really based on our current program capacity. We are thankful that we have great subscription rates every year for our education programs and our professional development programs, which means we can only offer a certain number of packages, at least currently. It will be on a first come, first served basis. So when that application comes in, it will be time stamped, and the first sort of 10 that qualify and accept our offer will be accepted in the program. We may make additional spots available in future years should there be demand. So we're not calling this a pilot, because it certainly is much more than a pilot. We think there's some real longevity to it, but we certainly want to gauge interest from the sector overall before we consider opening more spaces for future years. The career development packages are aggressive. Participants, particularly those in the early career stream, will require real focus and dedication to complete them. There's no sort of skirting around that. This isn't the packages aren't completed or aren't combined in order to lessen the workload. It's still going to, the workload is going to be there. But certainly we think there's some real value in having some of that sort of concentrated work done. That's why we're actually, as part of the application, we are looking for agreements with the municipal organizations through the direct supervisor, because we know that there's going to be a requirement of that individual to use work time to potentially do some education pieces, or to attend a forum, or to go to a mentoring session. So we want to make sure that not only the individual is aware, but the organization is aware as well, because it is, especially in those early career stream pieces. We know that it's achievable, because we've seen it. We've seen individuals go through go through our education programs in an expedited way. So we know that it certainly is possible, but we wanted to make sure that was 100% sort of transparent from the start, that it is an aggressive program. And CDPs are to be taken as complete packages. So there are no exemptions for the career development components. So again, if you've already taken your MAP program, or you've taken any of the education programs, we will not be providing exemptions for those individual components. Certainly if you've taken, for example, if you've taken a MAP Unit 1 already, there's still, you would still have to pay for that MAP Unit 1. There's no exemption for that individually, but there still may be value because of the overall savings that are provided by the packages. But certainly our target is for those that have not already taken a significant amount of programming. The programs themselves are less flexible than our AMCTO regular policies. Yin can sort of speak to this if she wants at some point in time, but we do get quite a few sort of deferrals, cancellations in our regular education programming. There will be fewer. We because of sort of the regimented and the limited number of packages that we're providing, we are going to be less flexible within those AMCTO policies. Now, again, we're not. I think I said the other day, we're not monsters. We know that there are individuals that may need to take sick leave or other types of leave from their municipality, and we have built in some provisions for that, but our other programming is a little, or other sort of policies are a little less flexible. And there are some prerequisites for some of the individual packages as well. So things like for the leadership package, for having your MAP, because MAP is a component of being able to complete your CMO. So there are some individual sort of intricacies and prerequisites for each of the programs, which are spelled out in the application, and the terms and conditions for the program. So just to give you a sense of sort of what our application and sort of registration timelines are, we will be opening registration on September the 3rd. So that is Tuesday. That's the Tuesday following the Labor Day weekend. So in a couple of weeks. So applications will be open at that point in time. We'll take sort of the month of October to review those applications. We'll look to award spaces in November. And then there will be a sign back requirement of the individual and the municipality to accept that space. We'll do an orientation in November with those that have been accepted, so that they, sort of understand the overall sort of process for registration and payment and all of that sort of good stuff. And then we'll look to sort of have registration completed in December and January, December through January, including payment at that point in time, and then looking to start off people within their programs in January of 2025. So we do have a very comprehensive terms and conditions document, FAQ document on our website. But just a couple things here just to go through that we thought worth noting within the session. We're just checking my watch. We're good. Do I need to be a full member to be enrolled in the program? The answer is no, because membership is a component of the career development packages. So ultimately, if you are accepted and you're not a member already, you'll become a member of AMCTO as part of that package, because it's included in the overall package. Will I be automatically granted my individual accreditation? The answer is no. As I mentioned before, this isn't a way to get around work. It's just certainly concentrating it. So you will still go through the accreditation process and assessment process. But again, that sort of overall cost of that program will be discounted. Again, we talked a little bit about this already around one or more of the education components. Is there an exemption? There is no exemption for those. Can I take a Zoom format of education courses within the CDP? The answer is actually no. We have some limited space around the CDPs. So for most of the education components, it will be correspondence only. The only real exemptions are the legislative through the MCI program and the EDMM through leadership, because those are already the only offering that we have are actually through the Zoom format. Will I be able to complete the program if I start a new job at a different organization? The answer is yes. Certainly it is transferable to another organization, but certainly we would have the expectation that your new employer is aware of your commitment and is in agreement to continue on with the program. And as I mentioned earlier, there's a significant number of or there's a more fulsome document on our website under the career development packages for the FAQs and the full terms and conditions. So I think that's more or less it for my individual or for the presentation. Again, please go to amcto.com/CDP for more information. Make some determination of whether or not this is right for you or your staff. Do you think this is a good opportunity to be able to sort of grow and develop them? If you're thinking about it for you, talk to your supervisor, talk to your HR representatives about applying for the CDP. And then again, save the date and check back on our website when applications open, which I mentioned earlier is on Tuesday, September the 3rd. So with that, I do want to thank you for taking the opportunity today to hear a little bit about our CDP programs. Again, really excited about about this offering. Excited about the response that we've received today. We've received a number of questions which have actually gone into our FAQ document, and we're really excited about the prospect of supporting you and supporting your staff and really supporting the sector in growing growing individual careers, and then ultimately helping with succession planning within the sector. So I'm going to stop sharing. I'm gonna maybe ask, yeah, Ian, I haven't looked at the chat, but are there questions you think are worth sort of highlighting within that chat, or responses you think might be worth sort of highlighting?
Yes. Yeah, so there was one question where I thought it'd be easier just to kind of pick up, in conversation this way. So the question was, what should we tell employees in terms of the approximate time commitment per week if they were to do this package? And so the response is it depends. So first of all, depends on the package, depends on what components are included in a given year. So for example, as Dave mentioned, the early career stream with the education components, it's quite heavy on that and it's intensive. So it depends on what they're required to do each year. As far as, so just as an example, when we say intensive, for the education courses, so first of all, just a caveat, we do survey our students to give us a sense of how long it takes for them to do each course. And I can tell you that there's a wide range in the responses because people just do their assignments at different paces. They bring different background knowledge to the courses. And so that experience can vary widely between individuals in terms of how much time they need to take to complete the work. That being said, as a ballpark, so for example, MAP Unit 1, so one MAP course, you should expect to spend somewhere between at least 35 to 40 hours throughout the term. So so you kind of have to just spread that out. So a term is September, October, November to mid-December. So maybe 3.5 months. Over the course of 3.5 months or so, one course, budget like 36 to 40 hours. Again, roughly. So that kind of gives you an idea for that. If we're talking about the executive diploma in municipal management, that program is a different kind of model. There's Zoom classes, so the time that you need to budget would be a little different. So I'm happy to, if you want some more specific information, feel free to email us. I'm happy to follow up with more detail depending on what you're looking at. Hope
Great.
that helps. There was another question, Dave, about. Sorry, the messages kind of stack and I kind of lose track of the thread sometimes. So if I'm missing something, do let me know. There was a question about the approximate cost. Is there an approximate cost that can be provided? This would help for budgeting purposes.
Yeah, so I think, did we have one in the original presentation, Jacqueline? Do you remember?
We did. We had one based on costs for our 2024 pricing for all of the courses, and we kind of totaled that up to show kind of what that savings would be. But then we didn't want to say that just because with COLA and increases, and I'll let Dave talk more about that, but basically our prices will change or aren't guaranteed year over year. And so we didn't want to give any kind of explicit costs and then all of a sudden, have that change or be different in 2025 and then have that be a surprise to people. So we haven't outwardly kind of put that 2025 cost out yet, but yeah, happy to kind of speak to some of those savings or what that sort of price was based on the 2024 estimate.
Yeah, and it would be, Dan Dien, who's our manager of finance and administration, got very frustrated with me because I originally wanted just to provide a blanket cost and a blanket price for each of the programs. The challenge is that we are actually sort of legislatively required as a not-for-profit to charge in each year sort of what we're providing. So we can't just say, well, in 2024 we're going to provide this at this cost, and we're going to do that for 3 or 4 years specifically. It just is it becomes a bit of a challenge for us from a finance perspective. So essentially what our commitment is that each year you will get 25% off the market rate. So essentially, if there's a whatever the sort of total cost of the education programs, the professional development, the forum, the membership, the accreditation, whatever the cost of that is in any given year, you will receive 25% off of that individually. So as I mentioned in the presentation, over a number of years, that again, especially in a 4-year program, we know that that's going to be over $2,000 in savings for the individual or the municipality that's paying for it. But what we can do, what we can commit to, is just in advance of the registration, we'll put that example in our FAQ. Jacqueline, I'll work with you on sort of adding that to the FAQ document, just to give you sort of a real sort of ballpark estimate in relation to that. But again, it won't be fully known until we sort of set our prices for each individual year. But that will be sort of clearly communicated to those individuals that are sort of accepted and are prepared to make that investment.
Yeah, and just to give an idea of the 2024, so the savings with that 25% off based on the 2024 rates was about $3,000 in savings. So just to give kind of a general idea, but like Dave said, we'll kind of confirm that and put that in our FAQs and on the site for when applications open and when we know that for sure. Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, and if there's nothing else sort of from the chat you wanted to highlight specifically.
Did I miss something? So if I did miss something in the kind of stacked threads, please feel free to unmute and ask the question.
Yeah, so we'll provide that opportunity now. If anybody has any questions, please feel free. You can either, put up your virtual hand or feel free to unmute yourself and ask the question. We encourage you to do so, either here or we certainly will accept any questions that you have afterwards as well. But any questions anybody wanted to ask?
Just one I saw in the chat related to prices, the expectation that the program is paid in full upfront.
No, so the payment will be required on an annual basis. So for those individual programs for that each year, the requirement will be to pay for those programs that you're taking in an individual year. So for those in the 4-year program, you'll pay 4 times, but it'll sort of vary throughout because it'll depend on what you're actually taking that year. So if, for example, if you only have your membership and maybe your accreditation fee for 1 year, that's all you'll pay for that year, minus obviously the discounted rate. So it may be heavier in 1 year than other years, depending on what you're taking in that individual year. Okay, so yeah, I just saw a question from Sarah pop up. So yeah, so the application process. So we will have a form that there'll be a link to a form that you can complete. There'll be a couple components of the form, and I'll have probably Jacqueline correct me if I'm wrong, but so essentially we're just asking for some basic information. We are asking for a resume, not a cover letter. Just to make it clear, because I'm not going to read it, and nobody's going to read it. So, but we are asking for just a CV, just to verify any sort of components in relation to sort of experience. And then there will also be a letter that you can upload. It's an agreement letter that would need to be signed by both you and your supervisor. The letter is essentially indicating that that by applying to this process, that if you are accepted, again, as I mentioned before, there'll be a financial commitment, there'll be a time and resource commitment on behalf of the employee. So there will be a component that will need to be sort of completed by you or your supervisor. If you don't have a supervisor, aka you are a CAO and you report to council, we're not requiring that letter be signed by by your mayor or by a member of council. We're just asking that you make that individual commitment. But if you do have an immediate supervisor, we do ask that letter be completed by them. And then ultimately that gets uploaded into the form, and then we'll ask you to submit that form. So that's essentially the application process. We will we'll take those all the way through September, and then we'll look to review those in October, and then make offers to individuals early in November to accept those spaces. Jacqueline, was there anything I missed in there? I think that's.
No, I think you covered everything. It's basically, yeah, like Dave said, just a really straightforward electronic form that we'll have on our website. That's just basically checking to make sure you've kind of read and understood the prerequisites for each of the streams and the requirements, and just making sure that you've got that experience. So if you are accepted, you know, you will be able to fulfill all of those requirements.
Yeah, and I think I saw a question just come up around, yes, it will, we will send out a notification, right? We have a notification going out on September the 3rd to let individuals know that the application is, or the applications are live. All right, are there any other questions anybody wanted to ask today? Again, I do encourage you to go to the FAQ document. We've tried to be as comprehensive as possible. We've been taking questions and adding those to the FAQ document as they've come in. So we'll try to keep that as live as possible. Sorry, I just gotta open my chat. And I'm now too old that I have to read them without my glasses. So. Yeah, so just as far as pricing, like when pricing is set, we actually the manner in which we sort of set our prices each year, we actually go to our management committee each year with sort of a request in relation to you know, cost of living adjustments or overall sort of annual indexing of prices. So we actually won't know those prices until for sure until the end of September. Because we go to management committee in the end of August, we go to the board in September, and then ultimately those prices are sort of determined for our individual programs and services. So we won't know the full cost of the pricing until at earliest probably October. So we should be able to ultimately, when we're coming back with offers to individuals, we should be in a position to be able to say exactly sort of what the cost will be, at least for that first year in 2025. And I apologize for some of the uncertainty around that. It really just has to do with the overall sort of budgeting process and ultimately sort of what we can and can't do as it relates to a not-for-profit organization. It would be easy for us to, like, as I mentioned before, I would love to be able just to do a set price and divide it by the number of years that are available, but we're just restricted in collecting money for only for those things that we provide in any given year. It's a requirement of the CRA that we do that. So that's why we can't just, you know, be sort of, you know, front and center in relation to what that cost is. But again, we'll provide an example in the FAQ document just so that you have a, you know, a ballpark sort of idea of what the, you know, potential costs are and what the savings will be within that as well.
A couple of follow-ups. So follow up to the pricing question, Dave, I don't know if you see that one. Would there be any type of penalty if someone who applies in September and is accepted is unable to complete if the process?
Probably the price.
For the part or
they probably
I'm
mean
interpreting
the price,
as the workload or so can you clarify that? I think Rachel. Prices. Yeah. So you were correct. If the prices are higher than expected, since the prices will be provided after applications start.
Yeah. Sorry, do you mean, what do you mean? I'm not sure what you would mean by penalty. There would be no sort of financial penalty if ultimately you know, at the point of us providing you with an offer to either accept it, you will be able to have the prices by that point in time. So ultimately, if you feel that it isn't within sort of your means or your municipality's means in order to accept it, then you don't, then you don't have to accept it, that offer. So there's no penalty per se there. So there's a question about just sort of leaving.
Yeah.
No, like so the question is around, so if someone leaves the municipality, does the municipality have to pay for the following years? The answer is like, if that individual leaves, the answer is no. The expectation would be that, you know, if an individual is going to another municipality, that they've had a discussion going into that municipality that they want to continue in the program. And then ultimately that cost would be transferred to that new municipality or that new employer. So no, once an individual leaves a municipality, there's no longer a financial commitment on that individual's old municipality or former employer.
So one more.
Yep. Yeah, so again, we're not, let's use an example. So for the, I guess the question is, you know, if you already have one of the requirements, would you be required to, would you start at the next part of the education process? And I will provide an answer, but I'll look to Yayan to nod yes or no. So if you've already, say for example, you've already completed, and I think I used this example earlier, if you've completed MAP Unit 1, we're not going to require you to take MAP Unit 1 again. You will still have to pay for it. There will still be a requirement that it is a packaged program. You're not required to take that unit again. So you could, but then you would then move on. We would still register you in unit 2, and you could take unit 2. That's correct, right? Yeah. Okay.
Correct. It just doesn't affect the package fee. It,
Right.
you know, it doesn't result in a reduction in the package fee, in other words.
That's right. Okay. Any other questions? Anybody? Are we 100% loving everything about what we're presenting to you today? Again, we think we do really feel that there's a great opportunity. We're excited to see what the response is from the sector. Again, everyone we've sort of talked to either before and after the release of the information really does see a great opportunity for us to support the sector more broadly as it relates to the development of individuals. But we're excited to see what the response rate is from our membership and from the sector more broadly. But as I mentioned before, please go to our career development package website. The frequently asked questions and the terms and conditions are there. There's also a contact on there, amcto@amcto.com is an email address that you can access as well if you have sort of further questions leading up to the application opening. But again, let me take this opportunity to thank you again for your interest in the program. We hope that you see it as a great opportunity for yourself or for your staff, and we look forward to working with you and again seeing the response overall. So if there are no further questions, not seeing any, we will call it a day. All right. Thanks, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your summer. Take care.
Thank you.